Hello, my friends. Welcome to Real Deal. My name is Andrew Fantasia, and it's time to take a look at all the sexy, gorgeous movie and TV entertainment news that have come at us during the week. So let's get right to it. You know that little movie that's coming out soon called Avengers Infinity War? It's small, it's independent, not a lot of people are going to watch it. It's tracking to make maybe $4 million at the box office tops. I'm being sarcastic. Well, the directors Joe and Anthony Russo are already, plotting and planning for Avengers 4. And they dropped a little bit of a bombshell regarding one of their iconic characters from the MCU, Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier himself. Now, the Russo brothers have made this little announcement saying that they have a 4-movie arc planned for the Winter Soldier that began in Captain America 2 and is going to end in Avengers 4. The Russo brothers had this to say. For us, this was the challenge of telling the story, but also completing the personal journey that we started as storytellers in Winter Soldier. So the story that began in Winter Soldier and that ends in Avengers 4 there's a very personal arc there for us. I think you'll understand our point of view as filmmakers and who we are as people when you watch all 4 of those movies together. Now, as a person who loves the cinematic universe with all his heart and soul, this makes me excited because I love the idea of breaking beyond the simple concept of here's a movie trilogy and all the characters that exist in it just do their own thing and that's their arc and that's it, the end. These guys understand that a shared cinematic universe gives you the opportunity to have characters not just appear in other movies, but to have their story arcs continue and flow through other movies. They said earlier last year that they were doing the same thing with Bruce Banner, with the Hulk, that the Hulk kind of has this trilogy coming up, which is Thor Ragnarok, Avengers 3, and Avengers 4. And now we're getting more about the Winter Soldier. So this is exactly an example of what I love to see from this kind of thing. And I hope we get more of it. Like take, for example, just a random character, take Shuri from Black Panther. I hope that Shuri's story arc, it starts in Black Panther 1, and then maybe it continues in Infinity War, and then in Black Panther 2, and then a big thing happens to her in like Ant-Man 3. I don't know, something cool like that, because it really just makes it feel like more of a giant ball of yarn that's just all interconnected, like one big happy family. That's what I love seeing in these movies. So this comment about Winter Soldier gets me very excited for the future. I'm already just tingling with anticipation for Phase 4. And I know we still have 4 movies to go before Phase 4 even starts, but goddamn, I love you, Marvel. Good job. Moving on to another thing that I may or may not be slightly obsessed with, some crazy whispers and rumors have been reaching our ears from way out in the unknown regions regarding Star Wars Episode 9. I don't know where these rumors have come from. They seem to be originating from all kinds of different shadowy corners of the web, but some anonymous tips have been flowing through stating that Yoda will once again appear in Episode 9. That's right, our favorite little green Muppet, our second favorite little green Muppet. Kermit's pretty hardcore too. He's going to be back in action as a Force Ghost in Episode 9, possibly shooting the shit with Rey, sitting down on a log with Rey and telling her secrets about Jar Jar, because he's been there for that. But that's exciting, man. I mean, Yoda was one of the best parts of The Last Jedi, and his scene gives me goosebumps every time I watch it. The idea of seeing him again is interesting. However, I don't want them to overuse Yoda. That's a very easy trap to fall into because, he's a puppet, and it's a lot easier to get him on screen than it would be, say, Mark Hamill or Hayden Christensen. It's a lot easier to just pick up the Yoda puppet and give it to Frank Oz and say, here, do this scene now. I can see how it would be very enticing to Lucasfilm to just grab Yoda and say, okay, he's coming back, especially seeing as how he was one of the few things in The Last Jedi that all fans seem to agree was a great scene. So as long as they're using him sparingly enough that he still makes an impact, I'm down for it. I'm always down to see some Yoda. He just warms my heart and soul. He gives me the warm fuzzies every time he's on screen. Because JJ has said that Episode 9 is supposed to tie all 3 trilogies together, and I really hope it does. That's what I'm looking forward to most about it. I'm gunning for some Anakin. I really am. I'm gunning for some Hayden Christensen. At this point, I think I would rather see that than Yoda. I'll take Yoda too. Either way, we're going to get some old school Jedi love in this movie, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to have fun. But there you have it. We don't even know if this is just a rumor or not. Right now, I would assume it just is. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm pretty sure that Disney wants to keep all this stuff under lock and key for at least another year or so. Do with this information what you will. Or should I say, what you will with this information do. Never mind. As of the time of this recording, Rampage is the highest rated video game adaptation on Rotten Tomatoes. I need to give it some of this. I really need to give it some of this. Whether or not you liked Rampage, you gotta admit it's one of the better video game adaptations out there. And it's high rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Let's be honest here. Let's put our cards on the table. It's not that high, but it's high for a video game adaptation. Everything you can say about Rampage in its favor, in comparison to the rest of its genre, you kind of always have to add in brackets, but that's not saying much, unfortunately. This news, though, makes me happy because I think Rampage does, in fact, deserve that rating. But now, again, we have to kind of be subjective here. We have to look at the way Rotten Tomatoes works because it's a very weird formula. It's an aggregation of critiques. It's not sort of the be-all, end-all. It's just an aggregation of different critiques and different reviews piled together, and then using basic math, an average is obtained from that, given a percentage, and then boom, they slap that on there, and they're like, hey, this is the percentage this movie has. And that works in theory, on paper it works, but you just can't you can't look at that percentage and take it as gospel now. You can't look at a movie that's gotten 97% and compare it to a movie that's only gotten 94% and say, oh, this 94% sucks compared to that one. No, it's just so... It's a lot more complicated than that. It's a very gray area. Rotten Tomatoes is a very colorful website, but at the end of the day, it should just be a giant gray screen, because that's what it is. It's a giant gray area. Regardless, this news makes me happy. Rampage was a lot of fun. I'm glad it's finally breaking through the very low ceiling set by other video game adaptations. By the time this video goes up, right now while I'm speaking, that average on Rotten Tomatoes is probably dropping, because that's the way that site works. And unfortunately, because it aggregates so much, it's also very susceptible to trolling. And what I mean by that is if I hated Rampage just because I'm some butthurt fan and I don't like Rampage, I could get together, 50 of my butthurt friends and be like, ooh, let's go give Rampage a bad review on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever. And then all those bad reviews will count towards its average and will significantly lower it. And there's nothing Rotten Tomatoes can do about that, because it just creates an average based on an aggregation of all the reviews it's received. So it's not bulletproof in that sense at all. So that's why, like I'm saying, right now, at this very instant, that average is probably dropping. This is another bit of news that you can take with a grain of salt, but if you are in fact a Rampage fan and you do in fact think that it is one of, if not the strongest video game movies out there, it should make you a little bit happy to know that for the majority, people tend to agree with you. Speaking of our friend Mr. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who I've been told I look remarkably like sometimes, Mr. Johnson has taken to Twitter to announce that Sony is moving full speed ahead with Jumanji 3. It's happening. This has now officially become a franchise thanks to Welcome in the Jungle. And when I say thanks to Welcome in the Jungle, I mean that in every sense of the word, because Jumanji 2 Welcome to the Jungle was Sony's highest grossing film domestically ever. That's insane. This studio that's been cranking out movies, since way back when, the same studio that made the Spider-Man movies, for God's sake, Jumanji 2 Welcome to the Jungle has become their highest grossing domestic film of all time. It's hit almost $1 billion worldwide. This movie is an unstoppable juggernaut. I don't know how that happened. I thought it was fun, but, I thought it was just fun, and then that's it, and I moved on. But apparently the rest of the world was really digging this film, and it is just a superstar movie now. And Sony sees dollar signs, because remember, this is a company that is really hurting for franchises. We live in an era where franchises are king. They are what keeps these studios afloat in an era where blockbuster pictures cost way too much money to make. A tentpole franchise is lifeblood to these people. Disney's got a gajillion of them, so they're fine. Warner Brothers has a pretty fair amount, so does Universal, they're fine. But Sony has always been hurting for franchises. They had Spider-Man, they cocked it up twice. They had Ghostbusters, they cocked it up. They had Men in Black that they're sometimes doing something about and sometimes not. They can't seem to make up their mind. Sony with franchises is like a blind kid with bottle rockets. Like, they are not going to use them correctly, and usually it's going to blow up in their face. So the fact that they scored a bullseye unexpectedly with Welcome to the Jungle, I mean, nobody really expected this movie to make as much money as it did. The fact that it did, though, the fact that it's now their top earner, at least on this side of the Atlantic, is just exactly what this studio needed at this time. Remember, they were in so much trouble that they had to do exactly what they didn't want to do and give in and let Marvel use Spider-Man, because they sure as hell didn't know how to use him. And that was a sign of dangerous tidings. But thankfully, Sony is picking themselves back up with Jumanji. This is a good thing. I like seeing studios succeed because it means they're going to crank out more and more fun content for us. It's win-win, baby. That's how these sorts of things work. So Jumanji, congratulations. Sony, congratulations. Bring on the third one. I'll see it. I'll have fun. Why not? Hopefully, this is the start of many, many wonderful, profitable franchises to come for the studio that just, for the longest time, could not wrap their head around that concept. And last but not least, close your windows, lock your doors, because Michael Myers is coming to town and he's gunning for you. At least that's what Jason Blum has to say. Jason Blum, who is the owner of Blumhouse Productions, has gone on record saying that he has seen an early cut of this year's upcoming Halloween finale. This movie is supposed to close the book on Laurie Strode and Michael Myers and end this franchise once and for all. Here's hoping. End it and start something new. But this movie is supposed to finally put a cap on that. Jason Blum has seen an early cut, and according to him, this is really something special. In an interview with Digital Spy, Jason Blum had the following to say: "I feel really good about it. I saw a cut of it 2 nights ago. I think David did a terrific job. He did everything I hoped he would do, which is respect the DNA of the franchise and bring something totally new to it. And we're really very, very excited for people to see it." Now, this could just sound like a producer trying to gush about his upcoming new movie and to sell it to the masses. And most of the time, that's what these pieces are. They're just little fluff pieces of advertisement disguised as insider thumbs up. But the fact that it's coming from Jason Blum gives me reason to consider otherwise, because this is a man who grew up loving horror, and like all of us, he had to endure and suffer the horror of the late 90s, early 2000s, which was just a cluster F of mess. I guess, he put his money where his mouth is and said, let's start making quality horror again. And he started Blumhouse Productions, and now thanks to him, we have an entire, pretty much every good horror movie that has come out in the past 8 years has been under the Blumhouse banner. For him to be the one to come forward and say, yeah, guys, this Halloween, this is something really special. That makes me excited. That tells me that this is not, again, one of those late 90s, early 2000s horror movies. This isn't Halloween Resurrection. This is the real deal. This is legit. But that has been Real Deal. I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you liked this video, maybe give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button so I can keep making more for you. I'll see you again very soon. Until next time, adios.